What's up, people? So today we're gonna be looking at a little problem that I've been having over the last few days that I haven't addressed yet, and that is that my air ride is losing air. In particular, the tank pressure is dropping, so I may be losing like 2-3 psi every day. And the way I can tell that is by looking at the management, and that was at about 143 yesterday, just teetering on 140, and then obviously the day before that it was 146, day before that it was about 148, so I'm slowly losing pressure, and what it normally is, this is a regular-ish occurrence. What it normally is when the tank pressure drops is it's because of this check valve, this bad boy here. So normally what happens is this isn't sealing correctly and it's actually bleeding air back through here. If it's particularly bad, obviously you'll be dropping a lot more psi throughout the day, but you can also check it by actually getting some soapy water and seeing if air's actually leaking out of the air filter. So I'll just try that quickly now. I've got this bottle here with some water and a little bit of washing up liquid, and all I'm going to do is just spray a little on my finger there, and then I'm just going to smear over this hole until it forms a bubble. Okay, and you can actually see there is a bubble forming there, which basically means that that bleed valve is ever so slowly leaking air out. Let's do that again. So just put some fluid across, wipe it across the face, and then you can see there's a bubble building up. If I move the camera around, you'll be able to see it. So you can see a bubble forming there. So what that basically means is this one-way valve is actually not fully sealing. So what we're going to do is depressurize this tank, because it's currently at 140 psi and I can't just undo this. Bad things will happen. Well, not very safe things will happen. And then we can just unscrew this one-way valve, and this particular one here, you can actually perform maintenance on it. So you can actually take it apart and clean it up, check the seals to see if they're any good, and then you can clean it up and re-grease it, put it back together again, and that normally sorts it out for another 6 months until the moisture gets in there and starts ruining the seal. And there's my dash cam rebooting. So yeah, let's get on with that. Okay, so out of the bottom of my air tank down here, I've got a 1/4-inch line that takes me to a Schrader valve, this thing here, and what I usually use this line for is to bleed out any moisture that's built up in the tank, because I don't have a moisture trap on this one. So every now and again I have to bleed the air out. So I've got this little crack pipe setup thing here with a a Schrader bike pump clip there, and then the hose goes into a little bottle, and then I can just collect the fluid. There wasn't that much water in there, just a couple of drops. You can see a little bit of it there. But basically just push this on, push the valve down, and I just let all the air bleed out. So the tank's now all empty of air, so I can just tuck this out of the way. We'll be using this again to prime the tank, to fill it up again, which saves running the compressor for too long. Now what we've got to do is take this non-return valve off. So I've got a 22mm here just holding in this reducer, and I'm just going to undo this valve here. This piece is on a swivel, so this particular part of the airline is on an actual swivel piece. So it's safe for me to basically undo this, and then this will spin around so we don't twist up this braided leader hose. So 22 holding the reducer, and another 22 to undo the body of the return valve, and now it's easily coming off there. When we put this back together again, we're going to need to put some ptfe tape around this thread again to make sure it seals nicely, so we can remove all this gunky old stuff, and then we can clean that up a bit. I can see a little bit of rust there, which is not a good sign. See how bad that is. A little bit of rust in there, which no doubt has probably caused problems inside here as well. So if we have a look down that hole, yeah, well, we'll have to have a look at that when we take the whole thing off. So the next thing to do is to get the leader hose off of the return valve. So we're just going to hold the body of it with the 22, and then it's a 14mm to undo this this union here, and then once we've undone that, we can actually get it on a bench and take apart the valve, see what's going on inside. So we go, there's the one-way valve out. Okay, so we've got the one-way valve, or the check valve, out now. So now all we need to do is just open it up, and on this SMC AK 2000 valve, what's nice about it is that you can actually take this apart. Okay, and then this thing should just come apart, which it does. It's slightly spring loaded there, and you can see it's pretty dirty inside here. So the way this should be working is this piston here, which we will attempt to remove. This piston here basically allows air to go in this way by retracting against the spring, but then any air wanting to come back this way will actually help push the valve closed, and you can see the surface of that. There's a rubber seal there, and what that's meant to do is it's meant to mate up against this, what should be a clean, smooth surface, and stop the air going back in the out. So it should only let air in but not let air out. And looking at the surfaces of that, they're actually pretty gunky, so what we're going to do is clean those up, and I might just put a light film of grease on there, hydraulic grease on there. Make sure these sliders are all clean as well on the inside, and then we'll put it back together and then put it back on the end of the tank. So the valve's all apart, and just cleaning it up with some brake cleaner and a toothbrush. Just kind of spray it on, give it a scrub before it evaporates. And then kind of remove the dirt until it's all nice and shiny. Same for the piston. Scrub this up. Just like brushing your teeth. Just try and clean off the face of the rubber. And then for the mating surface of the piston, I've just cut out a tiny little bit of wet and dry, 12,000 wet and dry. And the purpose of that is to try and remove some of that corrosion that's on that surface. So just kind of put some towel behind it, some pressure on there, work it in a twisting motion just to try and get rid of some of that build up on there. Okay. Give that a scrub too. So hopefully those surfaces are clean enough now that they'll hold a nice airtight seal. So now it's time to put it back together. Oh, another thing I did was I just stretched out this spring a little bit, just to give it a bit more force, help it along. So now it's time to put it back together. I'm just going to put a little drop of silicone lube on the rubber parts, and then that'll be it. Okay, so I've taken some ptfe tape and I've wrapped it around the tank reducer here, and I've also put some on the end of the leader hose for the compressor. And now it's time to wind this back on. So you just need to double check that you're putting the right end on, so in and out. So we just wind this on. Now I'll wrap this ptfe tape clockwise, going with the thread. I can't remember what the standard working practice is. I think some people might do it the other way around to make the tape bite when it winds on. Personally, I've always just done it clockwise. So we're just going to wind this on here. Make sure it's tight. And then we need to screw this onto. So everything's a little bit tight here. So I just position this at a diagonal so I can get some clearance so it doesn't hit that. Doesn't hit the heat sink of the compressor head. So now what we're going to do is we're going to use my air compressor and we're going to fill it up to the max, which is I think 115, 120 psi. And then what we're going to do is we're going to use an airline attachment to refill my tank. So we're going to use this to basically refill my tank through the Schrader adapter that I've got running out of the bottom. And what that'll do is that'll take the tank up to like 115, 120, and then we can let the compressor do the rest. So let's do that. Okay, so the air compressor managed to get it up to about 109, 110 psi before the compressor cut out. So that's the limit for my compressor. So this is now pressurized, and what we're going to do is go with the soapy water again and just check that we are not leaking anymore. So just squirt a bit on my fingers and then just wipe it over the hole to form a bubble across the hole, which I can just about see. And we are not leaking anymore. Let me just try that once more, just in case my eyes are playing tricks on me. No, there's definitely a bubble over that. Yeah, because I just popped it. So we are not leaking anymore. Which is good, because that means problem solved. So this is something that I have to do like once every 6 months maybe. The good thing about that SMC check valve is that it's rebuildable, which allows me to do this kind of maintenance on it, I guess. But yeah, if you're having problems with your tank losing pressure overnight, then one of the things you can check is your check valve. There we go. So with that said, that's me and the check valve out of here.